Are you ready? Let's go. Ready?
Ready.
Yeah, ready when you are.
Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Holden Shepherd, Heidi Anderson, Jan Latter, Alison Patterson, welcome to my little show.
Why do you call it a little chat show?
Jan Nichols, Sam Eichen, Annabelle Smith, Donna Mazza, Rebecca Watson, Jonelle Fraser, Tracy Jacobson, Adam Wallace, Monique Mulligan, Matt Glover, Karen Young. I don't even know where I'm going with this. Welcome to my show. Hey, Josh Langley here. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Josh Langley Gets to Know. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. Hit the bell so you can be first to know when a great new interview is released. Now, I've just been having a fantastic chat with Cameron Macintosh. Now, Cameron is a children's author. He writes the Max Booth Future Sleuth series. That's a bit of a tongue twister. His new book in that series is out now, and it's been illustrated by Dave Atze, and it's through Big Sky Publishing. But Cameron is a fascinating person. He's been an editor. He has been a senior editor. He's written like over 100 books for the education sector. So he knows what he's doing, but I really wanted to sort of go behind the scenes of what Cameron does, how he thinks, and let's just put it this way. He's an introvert, so I wanted a bit to know about that, because I'm an introvert too, and I know a lot of other people are. So, look, pour a cup of coffee, glass of wine, whatever you want to do while you're swimming in the ocean, taking the dog for a walk, or playing with your frogs. I don't know, whatever it's going to be. Sit back, let's enjoy, and let's get to know Cameron Macintosh. Cameron Macintosh, thank you so much for coming on my show. How are you?
Great, thanks, Josh. Thank you for having me. I've been enjoying your videos for a long time, so it's a bit of a thrill to be in one. So, thank you.
Well, welcome to the fold. That's all I can say. Now, you've got your new book, Max Booth Future Sleuth. I had to really practice saying that because you did have to make a tongue twister, didn't you? Now, the new book's called Map Trap, and I want to get to that in a minute. But first, I actually sort of want to get to know you a bit more, Cameron. Now, in some of the interviews I've seen you do, you talk about being an introvert.
Yeah.
Now, that can be great for being a writer, because I'm an introvert myself, but it comes up against when you have to do promotion and self-promotion and publicity and stuff. So for you, being an introvert, how well do you go with that side of the business of being a writer?
It's funny because I would have thought it would be much harder than I find it, but like I do find you can kind of put that hat on and just kind of detach a bit from yourself in a way. And especially when I have a script, I particularly feel very comfortable in that sense. Like I love doing videos and things like that where I've got a script. So I've got,
and now you don't have a script.
No, this could go anywhere. But I've got this little teleprompter app on my phone. So any kind of direct to camera videos, usually I'm just sort of, the text is rolling up the side.
Oh, really?
And I can kind of use that. And it's
is that a free app, or do you pay for that?
I think I had to pay 20 something bucks for it.
I'm writing this down. I'm making notes. Teleprompt.
It's very handy
app, because I've actually got to do a presentation in a couple of weeks' time, in basically getting people who are building their profile, whatever, to do an entry level guide on how to use video for promotion, and the teleprompt app sounds like a great idea. So I'm gonna saves it when you have to, otherwise you're sitting there going, I don't know what I'm going to say. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So what does the rest of being an introvert look like for you? How does that look like?
For me, it's doing a lot of reading. It looks like, just spending a lot of time playing with ideas in my head and hoping that, eventually they'll become visible to the rest of the world, because, I don't want it to be for nothing kind of thing. But, I think as you identify as one too, and there are kind of different layers to it. You can wear the non-introvert face when you have to, and that's fine too. But
so I'm assuming you would do school presentations and school talks for your books.
I've done a few. That's something I'm building up right now, though. Yeah. So that's
how do you go doing that? Have you obviously, as you said, you're only just starting, but do you get that really big nerves before you go into a classroom?
Yeah, but again, it's kind of like if I've got a script that helps immensely, no, even if I don't stick to it, just to have it as a bit of a security blanket, or at least really thoroughly memorized. I need to really be prepared for those sorts of occasions, though, or else I would kind of crumble, I think.
So when you do these talks, are they to primary school kids or early high school kids?
Primary. So
primary, okay. Yeah, and look, primary school kids are great because they're the main audience that I talk to. And and as you would know, there's a big difference between the year 1s and 2s, between the 5s and 6s, because if you do a presentation that you do for the 1s and 2s to the 5s and 6s, the 5s and 6s just look at you and go, yeah, exactly. Right, yeah, okay, and they can pick it a mile away. Yeah, okay. So because I find a lot of other authors who they enjoy the solitary aspect of the writing process, but when it comes to actually having to do that promotion, to stand up in front of a crowd or to do an interview like this or something, most of them can actually do it because, as you said, you can almost put a different hat on. So it's not you personally, you're just playing the role of a character of doing something in order to actually promote the book, which I think is a great thing. Because I mean, previously a lot of people go, no, not doing any promotion, not doing anything like that. No, I just want to sit behind my desk and write books, and I don't want to have to do that. But I think that's changing a lot more. Do you see a lot of other authors doing the same thing?
Absolutely. I think a lot of us naively thought, we could be the mysterious kind of silent author, just, pump out books and people will kind of latch onto them because of some kind of mystique. But like those days are gone. Like, honestly, I mean, I think a publisher's not going to take a risk on you, especially as a new author, if they don't kind of see some evidence or have a sense that you're going to be willing to get out and about and, talk to people about the books and share them around however you can, whether that's in person or online. So,
and online is where it's at these days, isn't it? It really is. Going forward, that's the why did I say the word going forward? I hate that. Anyway, going forward.
I do it occasionally, don't worry.
Now, I was going to say, because you originally trained or qualified as an editor and senior editor. How do you go with editing your own stuff? Are you too close to it?
Yeah, probably. But I actually find if I can put it aside for a week or two, that's usually enough distance. I mean, I'm never the final editor, obviously, but as part of the redrafting process, a week or two is usually enough that I can look at and see, obviously not all of the flaws, but a lot of the ones that I'll ever be likely to catch. So, it's kind of, I do find it really interesting kind of trying to think back to, editing other people's books and then applying that to mine, because I think you apply a different standard to your own work. I think I'm a lot harsher on mine for sure. But
okay. Okay, because I find I'm a lot hard. If someone says, "Look, Josh," I mean, I don't want to attract this, but if people say, "Send me a short manuscript or first 3 chapters," and say, "Josh, can you take a look?" I'm a lot harsher with them than I am for myself. And I'll look at my own stuff and go, oh, that'll do. But my editor will pick that up. Do you know what I mean? And then Diane looks at it at Big Sky and goes, what is Josh doing? He should pick up his game. What's happening here? So when I look at other people's stuff, I'm a lot harsher in that regard. I see things that they can't see. And that's what happens with people editing me. They see things that I can't see. or are too lazy to really go over. Now, you
Yeah.
started out in the educational sector, writing books for the education. How did that happen?
So it was a sort of a slow process. I got into editing because I saw it as kind of potentially as a gateway to writing. I thought, if you're in the industry, you'll, get to know people who can give you that opportunity eventually. And it took a few years, but it did work out like that. So, I was an editor for an educational publisher for on and off, well, not on and off, on for about 7 or 8 years, but some of it was freelance and some of it was in-house. And I just sort of made it known to the publishers that I was interested in writing, but they've got to be careful. Like if you're on staff, there's a little bit of, they don't want any kind of conflict of interest.
Oh yeah, good point. Yeah,
issues coming up. And so sometimes people on staff do it, but like there wouldn't be a contract and you wouldn't be getting royalties sort of necessarily. But if you're a freelancer, then that opens the door to that. So quitting the day job and going freelance, I did that after 7 or 8 years. And I only did that because a publisher had offered me lots of work, including some writing at the time. So I thought, wow, so I can work at home, my own weird hours, still do enough editing to eat, and finally get to write a few books.
So you're almost guaranteed an income.
Initially, yes.
Wow, that's great.
For the and that kind of lasted a few years, in which time I kind of got to know more people around the traps in the educational circuit, because it's a pretty small. Yeah. It's a pretty small industry in a sense that the people who make the publishing decisions tend to hop between different publishers, but often they're in similar roles. So without trying too hard, you end up knowing people in a number of different publishing houses, and once they've seen that you've got a bit of a track record, then there's a lot of trust involved, I think, in educational publishing, because they just need to know. They've got a very clear goal in mind for the book or the series that they're producing, and they just need to know that you can follow the brief and just get it right without too much bother. I mean, there's always
but
several drafts.
It's interesting you say that, because when you said follow the brief, it is almost, it's not mechanical in that process, but this is what they want. Can you write to that brief and achieve that? And I'm assuming that would mean that you're working closely with a lot of illustrators and designers, or did you just write the text and send it off? Usually
I'll just write the text. There'll be a lot of back and forth with the publisher, and part of the brief is nearly always to include illustration suggestions. So I'll do that, but that's pretty much, most of the time now, that's pretty much the extent of my interaction with illustrators or designers. Depending on the publisher, you might get sent some roughs to have a look at, but more often than not, you'll get basically the final version of it, and as a courtesy. And if you spot anything wrong, that's open to your input. But usually, like, the editors in educational publishers are fantastic. They're really onto stuff. So it's very rare.
They would have to have a really keen eye, because you don't want to let a typo end up in a school textbook, because that would just be...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you're doing that now. So this still sustains you, the educational writing?
Yeah, I mean, it's patchy. It's been a bit quiet this year, but like, it's been, given that I kind of, when did I leave? 2008. So I've been doing, I've been surviving off this for 13 years.
Wow. So this is your full-time gig. You're a full-time writer.
Yeah, somehow or other it's worked out like that. So I feel just incredibly lucky that it's panned out that way. But it took a long time. A lot of that was, I guess the first half of that period, I was doing a lot of editing as well, but that sort of naturally
it's building those connections and building those relationships, though, isn't it? That's one of the key things. And I think a lot of people getting into the writing game they look at other people and go, wow, how do you do it? But it takes time, and it doesn't happen overnight, to use a cliche, like moving forward. I'm full of cliches this morning. I don't know what it is.
I'm pretty good at those too. I'm sure I've dropped one before long. Don't worry if I haven't already.
But it is really, it's the relationships that you develop along the way that are crucial, because they know you. Then they go, oh, look, we know Cameron's great at doing this. We'll put him on this project here, or here's a contact, or we've got something coming up. We'll keep Cameron in mind for that. That sort of thing. And that's what I've found in working in this field as well, which is great. But it's taking that time to build those relationships.
That's so true. And yeah, I mean, it sort of happened by osmosis, I suppose, with me, because I was just there in the industry anyway. So by the time I was sort of pretty much writing full time, most of the publishers I were working with were people I'd actually worked with in an editorial capacity anyway. So, and then through them, a few others I got to know as well. But it's been, just sort of the whole process just sort of unraveled quite naturally. So I've been kind of like
I like that. Unraveled.
It doesn't unravel too badly this year.
Now, obviously, Max Booth Future Sleuth. I've been practicing. Now that's published through Big Sky Publishing. Now, how did you get that contract? What happened there?
Well, that was like one of the most exciting days of my life, because the Max Booth, the first one, I'd written the first one and I'd been rewriting it for a few years with the thought that, well, I like the concept and it could stretch out into a series. And then I sent it to Big Sky completely unsolicited, and we all know what the chances of
the slush pile. What they call it? So did you send it to many other publishers as well, like the big ones? Or? No,
Big Sky was one of the first. Maybe I think it did hit only 2 or 3 in one hit, but So when Big Sky got in touch, I was sort of picking my jaw off the floor. I didn't expect anyone to get in touch.
How long ago was that?
That was late 2016, and the first book came out mid 17, I think. So yeah.
Wow, because I know that half of this, approaching a publisher and pitching and doing an unsolicited sort of pitch, a lot of it can be luck and just timing, because
I think a lot of it. It's so true.
Because I know that at that time, Big Sky were deciding to move into the children's book market. Previously, because I don't know if anyone knows out there, but at Big Sky, this is my publisher too, so full disclosure there. They're mainly known for their military titles and military history. And so but they're looking to diversify and then include children's books as a way. So that's where I was lucky when I pitched to them. You were lucky when you pitched, because there was really at that right time when they're on their radar looking, and then they see a manuscript for Max Booth come through and go, oh, wow, I see potential for this.
Yeah, it's just, I suppose every publisher is at a different point, looking for different things at any particular moment. You just don't know whose desk your story might land on, who just happens to be needing something like that at the right time. So that's what I would say to everyone.
So did they email you, or did they ring you? What happened? How did that thing go?
I got a call from Di Evans. Yeah, and that was. So when you get a call,
when you get a call, that's I'm here. I know it's. I got the same thing, but I was in a meeting at the time when I got the call, so I couldn't take it. And I was like, so I had to listen to the message bank and then ran around excited. So how many books? How many books now in Max Booth?
So as of this week, we've suddenly hit number 6. So it's kind of been pretty steady, more or less one a year for the last 5-ish years.
And that's one of the things I've always heard is keep putting books out, A, for royalties, B, for public lending rights and electronic and education lending rights and all that sort of stuff. I read somewhere that the idea for Max Booth came out from a trip you went to Pompeii or went to the Naples Museum or something like that. Can you describe it a bit more?
Yeah, so I was wandering around. Well, yeah, I did Pompeii first. I hate when people say I did, but I went to Pompeii first, and then having had that background, I went to the Archaeological Museum in Naples, and so like having that context to look at their all the items they had from the site suddenly brought it really to life, and I was just like, wow. Even, I was more dazzled by the mundane daily, just combs and cooking implements, because that was where they belonged to the real people, and the real stories would have been behind those, and more, much more so than the sculptures and artworks that survive, as amazing as they are. But like emotionally, kind of, there was a lot of resonance in just the most mundane household items for me, and I just thought, I wonder if, in a few hundred years or 1,000 years, if anyone will find artifacts from our daily lives and find them as interesting. And I thought, well, who knows? But like, I thought at least that was the spark of an idea for a character with that particular interest, someone in the future who finds our daily lives or the things we use now to be interesting or quaint, or even just like
what a great premise though. So Max Booth is, just give us a bit of a summary of what Max Booth is about.
Yeah, sure. So Max is an 11-year-old, presumably he's an orphan. We haven't really specified that, but he's a street kid. And do you want
to give it away now? Because I'm sure kids don't listen. Is he an orphan?
Don't listen. Yeah, no, his parents are alive, but I'm not going to tell you where they are yet.
Okay.
He doesn't know either, but he thinks he's all on his own. So he lives with his robo dog up in a floating suburb called a skyburb, and he kind of makes a humble living by identifying old objects for the city museum. So he actually lives in the storeroom of the museum, where his friend Jesse, who runs the storeroom, quietly kind of allows him to live in a packing case undetected, because if he were detected, he'd be sent back to the home he escaped from a few years earlier, which he really doesn't want to go back to. So finding antique items like cassette tapes and film reels, like actually his livelihood in a way, because he gets a little bit of cash if he does it, but he also loves it. He's just fascinated by all that stuff too.
Wow. So that's good. So you're combining the idea of curiosity, intrigue, history, sleuthing, all the stuff that I think kids are interested in. Is that stuff that you were interested in as a kid? Or were you totally different?
I was interested in the sleuth. I love the sort of sleuthy detective stories and things.
Yeah.
In terms of probably not so much the historical stuff at the time, that came later, but I definitely loved the drama and the intrigue of mystery stories, and I loved all the choose your own adventures and things like that.
Okay. So this new book, Map Trap, which has been illustrated by Dave Atze. Hope I've pronounced his name right. Hi, Dave. How you going? Let me know if I've said it right.
You said it wrong. It's my fault if Josh said it wrong.
Now, what's this latest one about? What adventures is Max going on?
So, in Map Trap, well, in every book he investigates one particular item from our era, more or less. And in Map Trap, it's they come across an old GPS unit and have no idea what it is until they accidentally activate it, and then find out that it still works, and it's 400 years old, but somehow it still works, and they decide to trace its owner's most recent journey, or they find the home button and decide to try and find out who the owner was and where they lived, and they sort of follow it through non-existent, the streetscape has changed quite a bit in the intervening centuries.
I can imagine.
Yeah, but they eventually find their way back to where the owner lived, and discover that actually find themselves in the scene of a crime and get tangled up in that and trying to put that right. So
okay,
every story kind of starts off, the item kind of has some secret or some history that kind of explodes into an adventure for them.
Wow. I was going to say, what age group really are we targeting?
We're in the 7 to 10 field for these.
Okay, because they're
go a little bit younger, but
they're like graphic novels, aren't they?
They're illustrated short novels. So every couple of pages has an illustration. Yeah.
Okay.
But the design is really beautiful. So they're nicely spaced, and we want to do everything we can to encourage reluctant readers to enjoy them too.
Just about to mention reluctant readers. Do you get a lot of parents getting in contact with you, or kids saying, I never really liked books or whatever, but now I love Max Booth?
Yeah, a few. I mean, I won't say a lot, but there has been feedback, and I think one of the best, for me, the most gratifying bits of feedback has been that it's open dialogue between parents and those reluctant reading kids, because they can kind of share anecdotes about what the technology, what we had growing up versus what a kid today has growing up, and it's it's partly been able to serve an educational purpose in a way. Kids probably discovering relatively recent items, like I've got cassette tape and film reels, things that they probably wouldn't have, a 10-year-old would never have used, but their parents would have used. And so it's opened that line of dialogue.
And I think that's one of the things that you've hit on is the importance of curiosity and learning for this generation. And this generation is, I would reach for the book, but there's a book I've got on my coffee table over there called Generation Alpha. And that is wholly a study on this generation of primary school age kids. And
I watched your chat with Alison Patterson about that, and that was really fascinating, really interesting stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm about to actually interview the author of this book, who same sort of thing. And but it is getting these kids to stay open, or to keep their minds open, be curious, ask questions. And so Max Booth sounds like a fantastic way of actually doing that, and including reluctant readers into that process.
Well, I hope so. I've been thinking a lot about that side of it too, because how we can, going forward, is my thing, how we can produce books that kids, that can compete with screen, and that can exist on screen and still be an authentic reading experience. So
So what's the process with bringing Max Booth to life, and you working with Dave? How does that work?
It's a pretty clean process. So I will just, as I write the manuscripts, I suggest illustrations throughout, and then I supply a separate document with a bit of text just to kind of clarify exactly what we're, a bit of text from the book itself to clarify exactly what we're trying to capture. And Dave gets it, he's very instinctual about these things. He understands immediately, and he's got a real strong sense of the humor and the kind of pathos inherent in the whole scenario. So he will, a few weeks later, will come back, send through rough sketches, and I'll make a few comments on those, but really he doesn't need much guidance at all. He knows what he's doing, and he gets it straight away. So It's very, very smooth process.
And then,
yeah,
I was
it
going to
can
say,
be a difficult process if you're not on the same page, but
yeah, I can imagine that would be the relationship between the author and the illustrator has to be pretty close. You have to sort of intuit what each other's really trying to say. And then, is it just done on a Word document and then you send it off to your editor? What happens?
Yeah, it's all pretty old school. Yeah, just Word document.
Yeah.
So yeah, the manuscript's got the illustration briefs embedded in it, but then there's the separate document. It's kind of like a table, but just with the list of those illustration briefs, so it's all just nice and clear for Dave when he comes to do it.
So is the wording all edited, finished editing before you look at the illustrations, or are they happening simultaneously?
It's a good question. I usually wait until the last minute to do the illustrations because I'll often spot things that I want to change that can affect the plot, and you might make some of them redundant. So,
good point. Yep.
Because we're looking at, like, within the Max Booth books, there's between 20 and 25 and 30 illustrations in each book. So, if you make a big plot change, you can have quite a catastrophic bump on effect. But
and Dave's going, Cameron, what are you doing?
Yeah. So luckily he doesn't get there. He won't see anything before we're locked into those, fortunately. So but for my sake, mainly because I mean, okay, sometimes within the to and fro, as you know very well, with the publisher, requests can be made and they can identify plot weaknesses and things. And there was one in particular I went back and did pretty much a new version of, and fortunately I did because it became so much better as a result of feedback from the people at Big Sky. So in that case there was a lot of bump on effect in the illustration, so it's just as well that's kind of like let that be the cherry at the end, pretty much.
I mean, I've found it when people ask me, they go, well, you know, how do you find the editing process? And I go, well, I have to have the editing process because the actual finished book is 60% me or 70% me, and the rest is the editors and the designers and all that sort of stuff. I can't make a book 100% because it's other people bring out the best in my work to make it the best possible thing to go out into the marketplace with.
That is so true. You can't take too much credit for your own book because it's always a team effort. Without the publishing team, the illustrators and designers, you have nothing. So I kind of hats off to those people because what they do is incredible. Yeah. And it's the author often gets the credit, more credit. Well,
they kind of get the celebrity rights where the illustrator doesn't. That's why I'm the author and the illustrator. So I get all the adulation.
All the glory, I'd love to know how that works. I'm going to start interviewing you now, but I'd love to know what it's like, the process for you. While you write, you're obviously visualizing the illustrations quite strongly, I imagine, too. So
yes, it's true. I mean, I always start with the text first, and I create but it's only I have to get the formula because things, my books are non-fiction based. I have to have not a formula, a format or whatever it is. It's not until I get that in my head I can actually start writing it, and then I look at what illustration I'm going to have for each page, and it's trying to work out whether the illustration is just going to reinforce what I'm saying, or whether it's going to be a metaphor, or whether it's going to be something completely and utterly random. I don't know, and it's not until I actually start to write it and then spend some time. I may take a notepad down to the local cafe and have the manuscript printed off and just sit down there and let some ideas flow and just draw a couple of little sketches or something. But it gives me total control of that regard as opposed to giving it to someone else, which I'd find most difficult.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, you've got that visual brain, so that would make it really hard to kind of let go.
Yeah,
for me, that's letting go is the fun bit, and just seeing someone else does with it. It's like, I find that so refreshing to kind of get another person's take on an idea that started up here. But
yeah. So how many more books for Max Booth, or are you going to go off on a different tangent?
Well, we'll just see. I'll keep doing them as long as people want to read them. But I've just submitted one more, so we'll just see how that goes. But I'd like to go. I'd love to try a bit of rhyming text too. Something I've always loved doing, and I've I haven't submitted a manuscript in rhyme for a very long time, but I'd love to have another crack at that. Picture book format, perhaps. I mean,
I think you've got to be quite skilled for the rhyming, because I'm terrible at it. Roses are red, violets are blue. It's about as best as I can do. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll be here a week. Stay for the Parmigiana. Now you're doing the big tour now to promote the latest Max Booth. Where can people grab a copy?
Okay, so the best option. Well, if you go to my website, there's links there to Booktopia, which is a great place to start. And obviously the Big Sky Publishing website, it's a good place to start. Ask for them at your local bookshop.
Are they? By the time I put this to air in either this week or next week, it'll be in the shops already?
I hope so, yeah. Well, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Okay, now, is it CameronMacintosh.com.au?
It's just cammacintosh.com.au.
Yeah, I'll put it down here, cammacintosh.com.au. Brilliant.
Yeah.
One last question, Cam. What lights you up?
This is, this is probably going to sound a bit silly, but I thought about this because I know you asked everyone, and my answer is trees, because every time I find myself feeling depleted, or, I've been a bit too kind of introverted, spending some time in a forest around big old trees somehow provides the recharge.
Spoken like a true introvert. Well done. I love that. That's a great thing. Just it's the simple things, isn't it? Just grounding.
Yeah, and the sense that, especially with the huge old tree, when you just touch it, I'm sounding like really hippie here.
I totally get it. I do the same thing.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, but there's a sense of continuity and just cycle of life kind of thing. That you think of all the past trees and past creatures that tree is now using as its life force. So it's like, wow, this amazing community in one plant, basically. And I don't know, I'm ranting here, but I find that really exciting.
It puts things in perspective, doesn't it, when you think about it like that?
And are we still rolling?
We are still rolling.
Oh, good, because I just want to say I've just read your Dying to Know book, and that absolutely loved it.
Oh, did you?
I've got a lot of interest in all those topics too. So yeah.
Oh, excellent. Did you get the Kindle version or the physical book?
I got the Kindle on the Apple Books version.
Yeah. Did you when you got to the end, what did you think?
I got to the end going, I wonder what, because it was published 2014. I wonder where Josh is at with these things now. And then I realized you actually, I didn't know you'd written a follow-up like a couple of years later. So now I've got to get onto that.
Cam, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. Good luck with everything. I hope people rush out and buy your book, and good luck with everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really enjoyed chatting, Josh. Thanks for having me.
What are we gonna do with all this time?